So thank you very much, Dr. Joanna, to sparing your time to join us and inspire us. And I'll leave it up to you to add to all of this, to give us your full story. Thank you.
So where do I start, really? I guess today's session and what I wanted to share with you today was really around how to use yourself really to get what you want out of life, and the fact that there is power within who you are and what your experiences have been to date. And I don't think anyone had told me that early enough. So coming from a low income home, I kind of always looked externally for validation. And I always felt like, you know, when I went into the workplace, it was important that I had this validation from other people, because they must be brighter than me, they must be smarter than me, because, you know, that they've got these particular roles. And I guess I learned, and I can tell you this today, but I learned it in hindsight, that actually I had all I needed really in terms of how to get to where I wanted to. And since realizing that, I think there's been a really powerful shift for me in terms of what I've gone on to accomplish, and also some of the goals that I set myself. You have to always be ready, and you kind of have to always be ready to do what it takes when the opportunity presents itself. So there's a saying about prayer, and make sure you're preparing for what you're praying for, so that when it's granted, you're actually ready to go. Now, as I say, there's power within you, and there is power within your experiences. When I say that there is power in you, it's, of course, there was a village and there's lots of people around me who supported me, introduced me to people, but ultimately there was also lots of turmoil and trauma that I was experiencing at that time. But what I did do was I just made sure that what I did know and what I did have, I used as much as possible. So if I didn't have money to get somewhere, I would walk. I used to walk to my work experience at Cosmopolitan in Oxford Circuits from Battersea, because they used to say things like, you know, if you don't turn up, there's like 3,000 other people that would happily take your seat. So I'd be like, that's a really good point, actually. And they weren't saying it because I wasn't engaged. They were just explaining how competitive it was. And then I realized, like, you have to be first in, last out. You have to keep going the extra mile. You have to be nice to absolutely everybody. And at the time, I was like, my dad is still struggling, is still dependent on alcohol. So I was still going home, especially when they separated, to awful situations, and then having to turn up the next day and perform. Now, the reason why I say there's power in you is when I was setting up all that Shine Media, and I did all that work where we had the impact of 3,000 people. As I say, I was working full time for magazines. I didn't tell any of them that this organization that would, by this point, it had won 23 awards. And I had not told one employer. So my editor, I remember, my editor, one of my last roles in magazines, used to mentor on my program. And she'd always be talking about this Shine Media and this mentoring program and how much she loves her mentor. And she had no idea that the junior writer on her team was the one who had created it and who owns that company. Why? Because I was shy. I thought if I told people, they'd think I know it all. I thought, I'm not very good at journalism. I'm still learning myself. So they're going to think, what's she worrying about everyone else for? She needs to make sure she's good enough first. I just thought that everyone would think she's not good enough to be doing this. Again, all from like childhood self-doubt and things like that. So, but what I did know was that when I spoke to young people, I knew how to make them feel good. And then when I spoke to people at mid-level in their career, you know, kind of on their path already, I knew how to make them feel ambitious again and motivated again. And I knew that because I'd spent my whole life soothing like my mum and dad from their own vulnerabilities and their own insecurities. So I've been, you know, very open on this call because I'm trying to explain that even the things you may never share with anybody in your life, those things in a way become your superpowers. And at the time, they feel horrible, they're traumatic. As an adult, you still have to deal with them. But actually, if I hadn't have gone through them and picked up some of those skills, I probably wouldn't be here today. I think I sit on a number of boards And I think Stella would have probably shared my biography, but I sit on a number of boards. I'm both as a trustee and non-exec and as an advisor. And I do all of that. And the Joanna that grew up in Patmore Estate with those experiences is who turns up at that table. Whereas when I worked in magazines, it was the Joanna that I thought a journalist should be like, that those other women and men were like. Whereas now I absolutely turn up. And if I don't agree with something, I say it. And if you're not going to hold yourself to account, I will. And I expect you to do the same with me. And so reason I chose the title for this as The Power of You is because you may feel that at times, I'm not suggesting that you do, but there may be times when you doubt yourself and you doubt your experiences. But I kid you not, if you play to your experiences, which are your strengths, you become unique. If you play to your weaknesses, you just become strong. So just bear that in mind. Working on weaknesses make you strong, and working on strengths make you unique. And being unique is your USP, isn't it? Being unique is what gets you in the room. It's why people rely on you. It's how you become an expert in an area. It's how you specialize. So don't feel that you need to kind of be the master of everything. Actually, you can find out what it is about you that inspires, that motivates, that connects, and use and play to that. Because you could spend forever working on your weaknesses and still only become strong. Whereas you could work forever on your strengths and actually go on a trajectory that's beyond your wildest dreams. So there's some of the things I would say. Use what you know, use what's inside you, use what you've been through. Don't be ashamed of it, because it is quite literally the thing that's probably going to make you the most fulfilled in the role that you have. And just think that if you don't use your voice, this is one of the things I used to say to myself when I went to a board meeting, if you don't use your voice at that table, when you've been given the opportunity to sit at that table, whether it's, you know, my board with New Scotland Yard, or whether it's with the Lord Mayor's Appeal, it's that I always say, it's not that I'm the spokesperson for every mixed race Black woman in the country. I'm not, I couldn't possibly be. But what I will do is I will talk about my experiences, because there will be other people out there who relate to those experiences that are not in this room, who don't get the opportunity to challenge your perception, to challenge your bias, to challenge the way you view us. And so actually you can be an ally for people sometimes just by turning up and just by being yourself. So I think I'll leave it there, because I'm conscious of time, but also because I know that you may have some questions. But I hope that I've kind of landed the message of it's all in you, essentially. It is not outside of that. And it's so funny because I did the partnership with S3, of which I've got such fond memories, and I'm still such good friends with the CEO. And I did the deal with the investor. And my best year in business and my most fulfilling and most enjoyable have been when I was by myself. And when I say by myself, I don't mean that I didn't have a team. I had some incredible Black women that worked with me and stood with me, and disabled women and trans women and men, of course. So, and of different ages, of different faiths. Like, I've got an incredibly diverse team of people of whom I value with my entire heart. But we've done it. You know, we had the most success with us doing it, with, you know, my disabled consultant who specializes in disability, using her lived experiences, you know, with the trans man using his lived experiences, with my Muslim consultant talking about their lived experiences. So, you know, we've done it, we've done it just playing true to our own experiences. And so that's the message. You don't necessarily need this investment. You don't need this big sexy brand. You just need yourself, and you have to start with you. And once you kind of get that going, sooner or later, people start to gravitate. And I kid you not, it sounds cheesy, but the amount of people that used to say to me, how's that little project? How's your little project going? And I'd always think, that's so derogatory. Like, that is so like discouraging, that little project, you know, it's so minimal. And like now, I like the amount of people that are like, you've done it, you've managed to do it. And I'm like, yeah, you were the only one that seemed to think it couldn't work. You were the only one that didn't seem to think that, you know, having a purpose-driven business, an organization, is not going to get you anywhere. And I was, you know, I gave up journalism 5 years ago now, and I've not missed it, not even for half a second. Because during that period, the thing that actually made the difference was what I was doing with Shine Media and now Blue Moon.
Actually enjoyed every bit of it.
Just need some water.
You definitely need it. Thank you very much for taking us through the journey. I actually lost, I don't know if you realize that I got off for some time. My network just blocked me off and I had to come back on again.
Oh.
So there's a bit of it that I lost, and I felt like, okay, what did I lose? I came in at the point when you're talking about the partnership. Yes, and I have so many questions personally that I've had from when I met you. I started to ask so many questions about how you set up the mindset you had, but you've taken us through the journey. It's not that you didn't have doubts.
Yeah, I did.
Moving. And I like the fact that you touched on resourcefulness. So all you did is look out for what you had and you used whatever you had. You didn't put yourself at the point where I'm not able because I don't have this. You focused on what you had and you kept moving. You kept moving with whatever, and other people came along the way to support your journey. It's quite an inspirational journey. I believe all the women here can agree with me, because many of us are at a point where we think, oh, I can't do this because of this, or I can't do this, or I am here. I'm already past that age. So we have a lot of limiting beliefs in the way. And you being here and giving us all those hurdles, I kept imagining you like jumping over one hurdle, landing, and then you have another one to jump over. So I was just imagining you in a race, just going over one hurdle, and there's no time to celebrate. There's another jump over.
You know, it's nonstop. It's nonstop. And you think you get to hear, and therefore you've got some sort of like finished article, and you don't, because I always say every new level requires a new you. And I know you probably think, what do you mean? But it always does. Like something else happens, and then it needs a new level in you to go into that next step. You know, I always say what got you here isn't going to get you there. Always remember that, like, because there's different journeys, times change, and there's different limitations. So, you know, what I needed to do as a 19, or could even afford to do as a 19-year-old, changes suddenly when you're 33. And like, luckily I don't have children, but even now some of the choices I make, people always say to me, especially my accountant, she always says to me, you're such an entrepreneur. And I'm like, what do you mean? And she says, like, most of the female entrepreneurs that she kind of looks after, she said, are very risk averse. She's like, but you're like this, there's some sort of masculinity in you because you do all the things that the males do. And you know, and I always sort of challenge her, well, I don't think we should be kind of gendering this, but I think there is this element though that still allows me to be a risk taker, because I don't have children, for example. I don't have a full-time caring responsibility. I do have caring responsibilities, but not full-time. And so there are still things I can do now that I probably won't be able to do maybe in 5 years or 10 years. So I know what you mean in terms of limiting beliefs and where we are in our life, but there may be some things we find trickier to do, but there will always be something that we can do based on the set of circumstances that we have. And remember, I hate the phrase because I have a cat, but there's more than one way to skin a cat. And oh God, I hate it. Even as I said it, I felt sick, but there is more than one way to do something. So, you know, even if you do think there's some limiting things that are there, it doesn't mean that they are going to genuinely stop you from getting to where you need to. You can just find another route. You've always got to think, what can I do? I know I can't do that bit, but what can I do then? And another thing also to remember is, if it's a strength, do that. don't make it more difficult. Like some people go, I don't know what my strengths are. And I'm like, it's probably the thing you don't even realize is a strength because it comes so natural to you. Well, why not do that and like, you know, earn a living from doing something that doesn't even feel like an effort? You know, there's so many things that you could do rather than making things that much more difficult for you.